board.
And
I always
I'm the
forget.
Director of Communications.
And I'm just letting Melissa in. Hi, Melissa. Hey. All right. So I know you've got a crazy type sort of thing going on. And so, Melissa, why don't you quickly introduce yourself and then give us your exciting plan, and then you can get back with that unexpected business that's happening at school.
Okay. It's just always unexpected business here. Like, it's the way the life is. So I'm Melissa Mitchell, and I teach English and Latin, do a bunch of stuff at Shed High School in Eastport. And we recently received word that we were awarded a grant from the FCC for emergency connectivity. And it's total of $142,000 that we can spend on providing access to internet and internet-enabled devices for our students. So with that fund, we will potentially be able to purchase a brand new MacBook or iPad for every student and staff member at both schools. We are also able to purchase internet access for our families that live in areas where internet is not easily accessible, and they perhaps can't afford internet. We can purchase that for up to a year. We also received funding for 15 hotspots in a year's contract for those that we'll be able to give out to families, as well as 4 hotspots that we're going to install on buses to create smart buses. So that students, when they are traveling for whatever reason, you guys all know how far it is to get anywhere from Washington County, whether it's the normal bus ride in the morning and afternoon, or it's a sports game, or heaven forbid we have to go remote again and our students need access in their corner of the woods, we can drive a bus right up there, and they can have a warm and safe place to access the internet. So we are
incredible.
Yeah, we're really super excited about it. We're still trying to figure out how we're gonna, because it's not some of the things were completely funded, and some of the items like the devices and stuff were mostly funded by the way that the grant RFP was written. So we're trying to see how we can work our local funds to help pay for the rest, but just, $400 or $500 towards every computer is amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So which pool of funds in the FCC world did this come from?
It's the Emergency Connectivity Fund.
Okay.
And so they had reopened a third window for
Yes, I
schools and
remember.
libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been working on this grant for over a year, because we submitted it last April, and they've been coming back to us at least twice a month, every month since then,
Wonderful.
asking for more details.
Melissa, I can shoot you an email, but it would be great if you've got a little synopsis, and I can make sure that the state is aware of what's going on with this. And I'm assuming you're going to do some press, and we can help you spread that word across the state about this great news.
Yeah, that would be terrific. And I know I have to get a little talk to Elaine too. And we are closing in on our media center that we wrote a grant for last year. We received an MCF community building grant for $10,000 with that. We have received $13,000 in matching anonymous donations from the community. So what we're going to be able to offer here in terms of technology is amazing. And the partnerships that we're building, we're hoping that maybe we can bring the National Digital Equity Center in for some workshops, not only for our students, but for their families, for the community, that we can really make this a community-based center for that kind of learning and exploration.
That's just fabulous. Congratulations.
Thank you. We're super excited.
I'd like all schools to be like you.
Well, it's a start, though, for the rest of Washington County and the state to see this as a model. And,
Yeah.
and I love that it's starting in Washington County. I just love that. I know. So that is so fantastic. So Melissa,
All good things, Elaine, right?
yeah,
Good
really
things.
exciting. So I really wanted Melissa to share that. I know she has to go. You gotta just jump when you need to jump, Melissa, okay?
Okay, I will. They're supposed to be coming over, but they're 8th graders, so I'm sure they're taking their sweet time walking across the street.
It's a long way across that street.
It really is.
Okay, so let me find my agenda here. So most everything is pretty quick. Except, and so Susan, I'm glad you joined us. So we, at our next meeting, she was unable to attend today. We have a new coalition member attending, Jenny Jones from the Maine Seacoast Mission. She will be attending. She was unable. She's at something called C4 today. I'm unaware of what that is, but so at any rate, really, Maine Seacoast, the mission is really excited to be part of this. And I believe at our next meeting, we're also going to have a new member who is checking with their powers that be to make sure they can take time from their work schedule to join whenever our meetings are. So stay tuned on that. And let's see here. Healthy Acadia, you've done your interviews and submitted them. Rachel, you did. Thank you very much. You did too, right? You still got a few more. And Melissa, I'm just going to ask you really quickly whether or not you had a chance to interview any kids. I know that your schedule bounces around everywhere.
I haven't yet, but I do plan on doing it. It's just finding a quiet moment to sit down with a couple of
Yep. And it
students.
might be something that works when the Eastport Fiber Committee meets with the kids. But some of it as an educator, you might be able to fill out some of this because I know you know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I could fill it out for most of the kids, but it's getting that individual take on it.
well,
So
actually, Susan, we're not allowed to interview children, are we? No, we're
Nobody
not.
under 18.
We are not. So it
No.
would just be you, Melissa, if you could just fill one out. What you see as barriers,
okay.
which obviously you know, because look at what
Yeah.
you're doing there. We did hold our community meeting at Mano a Mano on the 31st of March. It was attended by about 35
Wow.
Latinx community members. It was very well attended. Some of the stuff that definitely came out was not surprising. Cost of the internet, concern over some of the households, the access or the device that they have comes from when their child is in school, and at the end of the school term, they need to hand that device back, and so therefore the family loses that device. Internet safety was a huge. They definitely want digital skills training. And when asked about how safe and secure they feel on the internet, that was a very hot button topic, like it is for most people. We get scam calls, scam emails, and it gets hard to tell them apart sometimes. So, um, so Susan, is it too soon for you to jump in on any of that, or?
Yeah, so, and it's interesting you should say that because I've been working on the budget templates for each of the regional and tribal broadband partners. And when we look at Washington County, there's 31,003 homes. Of those homes, 16% of the homes that have access to broadband cannot afford it. And sometimes it's not just the monthly cost, even with an ACP benefit, but it's also they can't afford the installation cost. That's another sort of hot one that's coming that we're seeing sort of bubble up. And so that's, so 16% of the homes in Washington County, that's an issue. And then the other one around equipment is 7% of the homes in Washington County do not have a device in their home. you know, when there's some breakdown on the detail on a town by town basis of American Community Survey data that I'll be sending to Elaine when we put it into pretty graph forms for you sometime in the next month. But what that does is it breaks down the ages. Let me see how this does. It's the ages of the people in the homes that do not have a device. Interestingly, what we've been seeing is that homes that have students 18 years and younger tend to have a high number of devices, but it could be because they're getting those devices from the school. And not surprisingly, homes that have people 65 and older have a lesser amount of devices. But 7% of the homes in Washington County do not have a device in their homes if they have a broadband connection. And I think the other thing I think there isn't any data around this, but it's just something sort of to make you pause a bit. Pre-pandemic, one device in the household was enough. Post-pandemic, it's not enough. So, you know, this is only capturing that one device, not the multiple devices that are typically needed in a household with working parents, specifically working parents and students.
Morning, Dodie.
Good
And-
morning. I apologize for being late.
Oh, that's all right. It's Friday and it's an 8 o'clock meeting. So, yeah, so that was the mono and mono thing. Now, Susan, I'm so glad you're here because let's talk the digital equity plan template. I sent it to everyone as an attachment. And so I'm so glad that Susan's here because I'll just, unless you want to pull it up, Susan, I have it.
No, go right ahead.
Okay, let me find this bad boy. And this is it, I think. Yep. All right, you should all now be able to see this. All right. Susan, can you tell us what we're looking at?
Okay, there we go. So this template was designed to capture a lot of the information that you've all been researching over the last couple of months. So the beginning of it is pretty straightforward, you know, who's the partner, what region, who are the coalition members. And then it goes into the vision statement, and I believe you've already done your vision statement, so you would put the vision statement in here. And then the next one, so not all regions will be able to fill this out. Sunrise County would be able to fill it out because they have strategic plans. They're part of the economic development, comprehensive economic development strategy plan. So these also, you've got broadband plans that are in work that's going on. So you can, what they're looking for here is, can this plan align with any of the other plans that have already been written for the region? So again, some of the smaller rural and tribal broadband partners won't have anything to put here, but I'm pretty confident that SCEC has some info that they can put in here.
And just as an aside, the new SEDS or Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, I'm not sure when that's coming out, but pretty soon, I think. So,
So
and I do,
what I know, because SEDS, you're part of the Northern Maine one, right?
Yeah.
NMDCs, right? So what I know from the last SEDS is, because I worked with Bob Clark on that, we included, NMDC included digital inclusion in their SEDS plan years ago. So, you know, they're one step ahead, of course.
perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this section are sort of the high level view of a paragraph or few that outlines what are the barriers that you discovered and the assets you discovered. So, you know, we know the assets that we saw in the University of Maine asset inventory, but also, you know, you've all been discovering assets. We want to highlight them here. And also that high level look at the barriers that came to the surface. So, you know, you've got all the detail in the recommendations, but these are just sort of gleaning out some of the highlights of those reports. And again, it doesn't have to be anything really lengthy, a few paragraphs are fine, and I'll explain why at the end of all of this. In addition to making Elaine's life easier. Okay, so here it gets into the specifics, right? What are the barriers that you discovered for the covered population during your teamwork? And so what are the barriers that you discovered for low-income housing around affordable and available broadband, access to devices and technical support, and to digital skills? And it breaks it down per the covered population category. And there may be some where you might be a little lean on the information, perfectly fine. Not all broadband partners are going to have a lot, have full data on all of the covered populations. And then it's inclusive, accessible government resources. Did you discover any specific government resources, processes, forms that are not accessible to the covered population? So what this is there are town offices where, you know, the website might not be an up-to-date website, or you can't pay a tax bill online, or, you know, there's barriers to the technology at the town office to have remote meetings. Any information that you might have discovered around that, you might want to put in here. And the same here, you know, did you hear about, as you did in Mano Mano, internet safety concerns from, and especially around the lived experts? Were they concerned about protecting themselves online, including privacy, the fraud and abuse, you know, the fake news, the scams that are going on? So any information that you might have gathered, you might want to put that right in here. Okay, so what assets has this coalition discovered that will be helpful for the digital inclusion outreach efforts? And as we go down to the next slide, and we'll explain a little better. So in here, what are the recommendations around this? What are the recommendations that perhaps that were identified during all the interview process? Well, they put that in here twice. That's a repeat.
I was wondering about that when I kept scrolling back up, scrolling back down, scrolling back up.
I'll make sure that the online doesn't have the two, so you don't have to fill that out twice. Okay, and then in here, if you get down to the next section. Okay, so this, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't tab. So can you go back a little bit, Elaine, to number 9? So here again, that high level view of what the recommendations and goals should be for each of the covered populations. Identify any strategies you recommend as state level strategies. For instance, a good example of that is an incarcerated, formerly incarcerated. In some regions, they've not been able to do any connections to the local prisons and jails. Having the state have a plan for our incarcerated and formerly incarcerated might be a better option than trying to tackle this locally. So that's a good example of that. Some of it can be around policies that you've run into or lack of policies.
You know what I think would, through the interviews and things and just talking and reading interviews, is if the state set up getting support, technical assistance when something goes wrong with a device. Wouldn't a 1-800 number be awesome?
Yeah, right in the 211, help me. right? Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
And, you know, there's a serious lack of technical support on the ground, right? And so, you know, a lot of the IT companies have been great in supporting businesses. Even small businesses are sort of marginal because they can be expensive. But what we mostly find is that the technical support in a community is the guy who's working out of his garage, right? And he's great, or does, you know, it's cottage-based businesses. And, you know, we have a great resource in Machias on the computer guy. I mean, he does all this, you know, all of the local computer repair, but it's hard for a residential home to bring a device to someone and say, can you fix this? We don't all have Best Buys that we can go to their tech support. So there's a gap in that for sure.
Well, and not if people, if we all think about it for a moment, if the balance between the ACP benefit and the internet bill itself is a challenge, a $200 repair bill might just make people want to fire their device right out the window.
Exactly.
That's a barrier as well.
And I think sometimes what people do, and I've been caught in this, I think we've all been caught at one point or another. You know, you go online to Google how to fix something, and the next thing you know, you've clicked on a site and they say, well, we'll come in and take over your computer, and can we have your credit card? I love the calls from Microsoft. You know, you get those random scam calls, right? We're from Microsoft. We got a call from you that we need to come into your computer, and we'll need to have, and it happens. And if you're, you know, if you're not, I mean, even those of us that are, you know, tech savvy, sort of get caught off guard when we see that stuff. Okay, link the individuals and organizations that your team interviewed during the teamwork. Elaine's got a spreadsheet that she's probably been updating. That's where this is going to go. What other anchor institutions, organizations have you not reached out to, but could be important assets or partners for digital inclusion activities? So there's not a whole long list of anchor institutions in Washington County, but if you haven't talked to them, you know, for instance, if there's a plan to roll out telehealth, increase telehealth, you know, are both hospitals involved? Are the FQHCs or the RHCs involved? And so those are things just to think about. And then the timeline. So the budget that we're going to be preparing is a 5-year budget. So the timeline will fall into this. So the way that funding is going to happen is you are currently in year 1 of the Rural and Tribal Broadband Partners, and that funding and that grant cycle is going to end in December. Then there's money set aside for year 2 for the Regional and Tribal Broadband Partners to continue doing some of this work. That funding, those budgets no one's done a budget for that yet. So, which is good because you have a better idea of what that budget's going to look like going into year 2 than you would have prior to year 1, because some of that budget might fund some of the recommendations as you move forward. And then the Digital Act funding. So, well, I'll come back to that. We'll just come to the end and then we'll talk a little bit about the process. Executive summary was saved for the very last bullet point, and that is just sort of a high-level view of the introductory paragraph to what this digital equity plan is all about, and then you're at the end. And so, okay, that's good. So let's talk a little bit about how this is going to work. So all the regional tribal broadband partners are going to fill out that digital equity plan, and they're going to upload it, or it's going to be on a Google platform through Maine Connectivity Authority. That's all going to be done by the last week of April. The 28th, I think, is a Friday. During the month of May, MCA is going to take all of the 13 regional and tribal broadband plans and sort of mash them up together, and then take all the information they've been gathering on a state level and bring that in too. So it's sort of like bottom up and top down. And they're going to create this plan that we have the month of May to write it. And then in June, that plan is going to be available for public comment for 30 days. In July, MCA will look at all the public comments, make any changes, additions, etc. And then the plan will be submitted to NTIA, which is the federal government agency that is overseeing this process, by August 1st. Maine is there's only a few states that are doing it in this way. Maine is combining both the Digital Act funds and the BEAD funds, which is the infrastructure funds, because both of those programs needed digital equity plans. And so what Maine decided to do was to combine it and do one plan instead of two separate for those two different programs. But that meant that the deadline was going to be earlier. Other states are doing two separate plans, and those plans aren't due until November. So we're like, again, way ahead of things, but it's put a lot of pressure on the regional partners to get all this work done. The plan will get submitted. NTIA will then review it. We're hearing that in early 2005, the NOFO will come out from NTIA and the grant application for the state to apply for the capacity building funds, which are the funds that are going to execute these regional plans. We know that we're probably going to get about this much versus what is needed for each of these plans, but we're going to build budgets as if we were going to get all the money in the world, because I think it's important to identify it. And I think it's an important message to the state in saying, this is what it's going to cost us to do this. So Elaine and I will go over the budget. I'm going to send that template to her today. We'll meet next week and go over the budget. We've already done some preliminary, because I always run things by Elaine first before I bring it to the state to make sure she likes it. And her input is just so valuable in all of this work. So
you're being recorded, right? And I can hold this against you.
Good. Make sure Charles sees this then.
So I just want to back up 1 second. So this coalition members, fine people, you are not going to be sitting there working on this budget.
Yeah.
So just everybody go.
Yeah, I mean, Elaine, once she gets it all done and Jen gets it all done and SEC looks at it and says, yeah, this is what's going to happen, she'll share it with you. But we'll be working behind the scenes on this. So one of the things that I think is important about this plan, because there's a lot of information, and I did a lot of sort of pushing back a little bit on the information here, because with MCA of what did the regional and tribal broadband partners really need to do, like an executive summary, for instance, because the state's going to be doing a state plan. And then the more I thought about it, there's really two paths. One is yes, we're doing this so we can submit it to the state to show that this is the work that we've done and this is what we've identified. But the second is that once this plan is submitted to MCA, and we then see the draft come out on the state level on the June plan from the state plan, Sunrise County's plan or Washington County's plan will be able to be a standalone document. So if you think about it in those terms, of course you would want an executive summary, right? Because it's your plan. But what's going to happen is that there's your information. And then when we look at the state plan, we can pull down, copy and paste some of the state plan into these regional plans that make sense, right? And then we'll continue to work on this, because this is going to be this plan is going to be a living document. It's going to be a work in progress. But what I think is going to happen is that we're going to work on it and sort of tweak it through over the summer months. And then let's just say fall is sort of what I'm thinking. In fall, SEC would have a document that they could share with the county commissioners. You could do, show to the public, so you'll have your own standalone document that will have some of the state information, all of the regional information, and you've got this very solid document that you've got moving forward. That's what I see.
Awesome. So what I want to, because, the Washington County Coalition members, this isn't their, their day job. This isn't their, so a lot of the heavy lifting falls onto me. They're doing awesome jobs of gathering up that information. But as I look at the template, I want to make sure that I'm looking at this properly. So as I start working on the document and sharing it with the coalition, that that I want to make sure, because I'm looking at this as a giant grant opportunity, if you will. We need to, and it should not be hard to, but I am selling the story of Washington County barriers and the assets. And then we put that together with the budget, because this is our vision to overcome all of this.
Right.
Okay.
And I think too, is that, we're going to do this budget, right? But then at the Sunrise County got the grant for the ACP outreach. So right off the gate, we can say, oh, there's this money that can go towards that digital equity plan, right? And so you'll start the state, we're only going to see so much money come from the state, but like the project with the school, right? That's showing that we're, that this is going towards this digital equity plan, that funding for this purpose. And the same is going to be for other projects around the county. I mean, even with Rachel's position, Elaine, we have a digital navigator. It doesn't necessarily have to be hired by SCEC. It's all these other resources
Right.
that are coming together.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it isn't just SCEC doing this. This is a county. So just is it okay if we give them a look, just a behind the curtain view of that budget, some of the juicy things that it contains?
I can do that.
Wait till you see what we've been cooking up there, guys.
Okay. Oh, can you see the spreadsheet with the red at the top?
I can.
Okay, good. Okay, so it starts, there were 3 tabs. And so this is the first tab. This is first. So we start with the detail, and you can see some of the changes, Elaine, that I've made. So here I put in that there are 3,103 homes in Washington County. And here's that 16% of the homes do not have internet access. And so there's an assumption, and Elaine can change this as she wants to, but the assumption I had was, okay, what if we raise funding for 25% of the homes that do not have, that broadband is not affordable?
Susan, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but that's our population, isn't it?
Oh, you know what? I need to go back. Yes, you're right. It is the population.
Okay. All right.
Look, I've been playing with the numbers, which is why this is here.
Okay,
Anyway,
sorry.
these numbers will come down for sure.
Okay, good.
So we did some calculations around this. We said, okay, what if 25% of the homes need broadband subsidy in addition to the ACP benefit? So think about this in terms of ACP. ACP offers a $30 a month discount on broadband for families that meet the income eligibility guidelines, and 75% if you live on tribal lands. But on a fiber project, a fiber to the home, when you're looking at, let's just say, a $70 per month bill, the $30 does some, but may not get you all the way there. So we know that someone living alone on Social Security may have income of less than $10,000. So a $40 bill may be totally out of reach for them. So we look at, can we get some additional funding? Then we looked at installation costs. So installation can be a barrier. And so we said, again, an assumption, and Elaine can change this, 10% of the homes in Washington County might need an installation cost. And then we come down to affordable equipment. So homes without a new computer, we know that 7%. And we then again do an assumption, well, what if we raise funding for 50% of those homes? And that auto calculates over here. Digital skills training instructors. So let's say the community college is going to hire a full-time, would like funding for a full-time digital skills instructor. It's going to be one position. And in the navigators, maybe we have, you know, 3 or 4 20-hour-a-week positions spread throughout the county at various organizations. SEC is going to have a full-time management person. And here, I'll talk about this in a sec, a plan for ACP outreach. And if some of our regional and tribal broadband partners are looking at connectivity hubs. Okay, once this section is filled in, it automatically calculates over to column, the second worksheet. So it's telling us if we use $30 as the additional discount and $200 for installation costs, and we provided service to 7,751 homes, it would cost us almost $4 million to do that part of the budget. Equipment, these are just some standard figures. These are the figures we use at NDEC. If and we said on affordable devices, we broke it 50% laptops, 50% tablets. Could be any variation of that. We'd be looking at $460,000 for devices. If we use digital skills training, if we use the rate of $25 with 27%, that's going to change depending on the organization that's hiring them. But we're just putting these in here for budgetary purposes or for demonstration purposes. A computer, a cell phone, data plan, general supplies. We used an indirect of 15%, only because that's what we use at NDEC. Others, you know, other organizations may change. They can change any of these numbers. And then what we did is said, okay, well, let's also add 3% increase in pay for the following 4 years. We did the same with digital navigators. And you can see, like here, we had only said 1 full-time position, where under the digital navigators, we said 3 part-time positions. So we want to make sure that there's computers and other technology to support their positions. Management staff, what does that look like? A public awareness, there's sort of some fields here that are going to need to be fill in the blanks based on the partner. There's, you know, stamps, unless there's a bulk postage rate, the cost of flyers. You know, if there's websites or emails, what is the cost around that? Radio or TV ads, and an ACP enrollment campaign. There may be a number that we fill out, we sort of work it out on the detail, and then carry it over to the unit costs spreadsheet. Connectivity hubs, what's the cost around that? And then it rolls up into this very nice little budget over here. So, you know, if we did what, obviously it's not the right numbers on Washington County, but we'd be looking at a $9 million budget to do just what we've put in here, not everything else. So we'll, when Elaine gets this spreadsheet, it'll have the correct numbers in it, and we'll work on, you know, we're going to work on the unit cost piece of it. We're going to work on this detailed budget sheet, you know, and sort of try to project how much it would actually cost to execute the plan that you have. And I'll stop there in case I know this is, spreadsheets are not the best thing to do on a Friday morning at 8 o'clock.
So as you can see, what's being worked on here is that the providing devices and connectivity for those who may not be able to afford it, or hotspots or whatever for those who just live too far down that road. There's a person in one community that I work with that their ISP wanted to charge them $55,000 to go to the end of their road. Yeah, yeah, Tracy, yeah. So, yeah. And that's not an that's one of the highest I've heard. 17,000, 20,000 is not an unusual thing. So in those cases, there are other options. But as you can see, trying to attack that, at least the barrier of access and devices. And then, of course, digital skills training. So, this is a huge shoot for the moon 5-year budget, but so you can see where we're headed with this is to try to get funding to address those barriers. So does anybody have questions for Susan or me at this point? Or are your brain swimming?
And I just want to mention, I just pulled up the true statistics of the number of households. The number of households in Washington County are 13,258. So that changed the budget by almost half.
Yeah. I was gonna
Which is still a lot of money, right? I mean, we're talking almost
it
$5
is, yep.
million. But again, we're gonna, it's
Shoot for the
over
moon.
a period of basic, really, it's over a period of 6 years, right? If we think about starting it in January 2024, we're gonna chip away at it, over, and, there'll be different pots of funding that I think, will, each of the partners will be looking at besides just whatever's coming down from the state. I mean, at first we had heard we were going to get 126 million, and then I heard it's really only going to be 13 million, and that's a big change because $1 million, even if on, if we said the state can't get any money, and we're going to give it to all the regional partners, $1 million is only 200,000. It's not enough money to do over a 5-year period of time.
No, definitely not. And Susan had made mention, and I had mentioned it in a way previous meeting, but some of you weren't on part of the coalition at that point, and Susan referred to SEC receiving an FCC grant for a 2-year ACP outreach person. So all that, and Susan knows that all that paperwork and all that stuff is currently happening. So SEC soon, I'm not sure when, will be advertising for that position. And so it will be a full-time ACP outreach for all of Washington County. And so yeah. So if you just put that in the back of your mind that if Healthy Acadia wants to hold an outreach session or something, yeah, we've got someone, we're gonna have someone to do that. So
and just to sort of, just because I think it's really nice to know, so, and especially for the Healthy Acadia folks. So in Aroostook County, it's Aroostook County Community Action Program that is also an FCC ACP grant recipient. And what they're doing, how they're going to execute it, is they're going to add it as a function for their outreach workers. So that, because the outreach workers are ensuring that people have the benefits that they are eligible for, et cetera. Know that we can do an in-house training, over Zoom for any of your outreach workers at Healthy Acadia to teach your staff how to advise the clients that they're working with on how to use the ACP, how to apply for that ACP benefit. There's a new mobile app that Education Superhighway did in collaboration with Maine Connectivity Authority. And so that app is it's a nice little streamlined app, which is much easier than the online application. So if you're interested in doing that, just reach out to me and I'm happy to do that for you.
Great to hear.
and I'm just going to share that really quickly. Because for you folks that this right here is the main that you can see right here, and I will drop this link in the chat. What's really cool about this little thing, one, it works on a cell phone too. So it's actually it's doable on a cell phone. And you can select your language. And what this does is it's like a pre-qualification tool. And so we all know I live in Eastport, so and it also has, so like if you might be underhoused or unhoused, just what is the zip code you would like to check this for? And so, for example, do I have home internet? I'm going to say no. Do you get Lifeline? I don't know. There are other ways. Okay, I'm going to find a way to qualify. Maybe I get WIC. You're doing great. Looks like you're going to, you may qualify. And so then here it comes. This right here, what we understand is it requires the last 4 digits of your social security number. But maybe I have a government issued ID, like a driver's license, and now you're ready to apply, view my checklist. And here it says right here, this is what it is you're going to need. And then you can start your application, or you can get help, either chat or like on the phone or whatever, apply with assistance. And from here, you can go ahead and check, for example, if this were the case, if I qualified for ACP, then here I could get it for nothing. And it gives you the speeds, and additional application is required. And so you can see here, there's some caveats to that. Here's another one. So those are the ones I can get for free. But it's certainly the $30 applies to any plan. So some people that I've helped enroll pay $17 a month instead of the $47.99 or whatever. So it's really, and then it will just go ahead and start the application. And so it gives them a checklist of what they'll need. Super easy, and that thing even works on a cell phone, which a lot of people do have. That's their device, is a cell phone. So that's the link in the chat to that. Easy peasy to use. Very easy, because a lot of times people, what I've discovered, and it's not just me, obviously, who's discovered this, a lot of people don't know about it. In fact, in Washington County, only 30% of eligible households are enrolled in the ACP. Only 30%. And this is very interesting to me. I do a broadband newsletter, usually twice a month, and I'm always hammering on about the ACP. Always, always, always. And I decided to see if I was making it, and I can track how many people are clicking on that link, and a lot of people are. But I decided on the last newsletter, am I making a dent here? Big thing about the ACP. And at the bottom, I did a little poll. Are you curious about the statistics in your community of the ACP? Yes, no. And then third option was, what is the ACP? And I had people clicking that. What is the ACP? Even though every 2 weeks, we have it on our Facebook site, we have it on our website, we hammer at it all the time, but still I was getting responses. What is the ACP?
So, and Elaine, when we get the detailed ACS data to you, so we work with a company that gets us all the data in a pretty manageable form. But one of the fields, they've added in any of the data that they have on the covered populations, and we ask them to include the number of homes that meet the 200% of federal poverty guideline, and we've got it broken down by town.
Great.
Yeah, so we can look at that and then compare it, right, to what the numbers that we know of the number of people who've signed up in a particular town, and see how much progress we're making.
Yeah, that's great, because in some communities, the enrollment rate is like as low as 3%.
Yeah.
And of eligible households, not of all households, of eligible households. So yeah. So anyway, that makes it super easy, because some people have started that they go all the way through the application process to get to the end to find out you don't qualify. And so some people get started and like, this is just too much, and abandon it. Some people think it's a scam. If it sounds too good to be true, Jody, if it sounds too good to be true. So it's really important to get that word out there, because $30 is a lot of money, and per month for these, for many, many households. So just anyway, so check out that, play with that, getacp.org. It's really, really easy to do. And if you guys share it in your newsletters or on your websites or anything else, all the better, because when it comes from respected organizations, it's becomes less of a, well, wait a minute, if the Career Center says this is real. If the Acadia says this is real, whatever, that it definitely, so.
Aileen, I
Cool.
don't know if you know this, the answer to this or not. I didn't see it on the list, but would unemployment make someone auto eligible for receiving unemployment? Auto eligible for that program?
I don't know if that's on there or not.
I didn't see it, but I'm just curious.
Let's hold on. Let's pull it back up and let's play that. Let's play that game. Hold on. Let's find out. Hold on. I'm just going to go back to the here. Just clean this out and start over, because there are ways to. 463. And let's find out, because there are other ways. Let's find out. So no more options.
Oh,
More
Pell Grant,
options.
that's a,
Pell Grant, yep. And then so right here, it goes by household. So it appears to be
Okay.
after that, they're going to qualify by income. I don't
Okay.
think it certainly doesn't preclude them or exclude them from applying. I think they just have to go this way.
right.
To
Okay.
the best, right? Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Good question. Cool. All right, we're bumping up against 9. We're 1 hour closer to quitting time, to the weekend. Any other question? You can't tell I'm excited, can you? Going to camp this weekend. Any other questions for Susan while we've got her? No.
I don't have any questions, but wow, nice work.
Oh, you know, it's amazing to do all of this work for all of you and to coordinate this with the state has just been pretty miraculous, I think.
Yeah, great job.
Yeah.
It's a
And,
lot
and
of
I think,
stuff.
I really think it's really important for, you know, at the end of it, you may be saying, you know what, you know, we didn't have enough time. You do have time. We can go back and we can add to the report. So just, we're doing this so that we can meet the MCA deadlines, but it doesn't mean the work will stop.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on that template, taking the information that all of you guys have gathered, and start plugging in and sharing with you and mark it up, do whatever, just, feedback, and let's sell this thing and start working on bridging this divide and bringing equity to Washington County. Let's do it.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
If that doesn't excite anybody, nothing does.